Thanks for the intro, John. As you can see, this is OSINT for everyone, understanding risks and protecting your data. Feel free to snap pics of any of the links or anything in here, but if you miss one, there's a website at the end that'll have a list of all the resources, anything that we referenced during the talk. Not a highly technical talk today, more of a discussion on how widely used OSINT is, but there'll be enough rabbit holes and everything to dig into that should be pretty fun for everybody. So, who am I? Besides Kumbaya and all that good stuff, I'm a private investigator. I do digital forensics for a PI firm in Columbia, South Carolina. I also do the information security community. I try to do them right by doing conference talks like this, as well as co-organizing our local meetup in Columbia called CarolinaCon. I do blogging, a lot about OSINT stuff, a little bit of digital forensics. You can find that at learnallthethings.net, and that's my Twitter handle if you do the Twitter thing at Beowulf88. This is my co-creator for this talk. He is not here, unfortunately, but I want to leave his slide up here. He is a pretty standout guy in the InfoSec community, so definitely pay attention to him if you're into OSINT one bit, or even just information security in general. He's a wealth of knowledge. Unfortunately, just a few days before his brand new Sec 487 OSINT class that he wrote for SANS, he broke his foot, so he's not making the trip here. We've packaged him in a human hamster bubble before his next class. That way he can stay nice and safe. All right, so typical what is OSINT slide that we have at the beginning of all these. OSINT is open source intelligence. It is basically anything that is fair game and free information on the internet. The contents that we see there can include media, audio, video, geographic locations, text from documents, blog posts, talks, basically anything that you find on the internet, as well as off the internet. There are public records, court documents you can get your hands on, information at the library, a sign at the front of a storefront. Basically anything that's within reach for free, you can consider it under OSINT. Social media gets pulled a lot into that. SOCMENT, you'll see it called sometimes. In general, we're just going to be using the OSINT designation for most of this talk. Now, OSINT is really, data is just data until you analyze it. Basically, anybody can Google a topic, throw it in Google search or DuckDuckGo, and get a couple pages of results. That's the easy part, finding information. There's so much of it out there that it's not really hard to go and find some info on a particular topic. The hard part is producing intelligence out of it. There's so much information online and so widely used that can actually become a little bit of a challenge to verify things. Our era of fake news and disinformation that we see out there can definitely cause a little bit of work when you get to the analysis portion of that. Now, the professional methodology that you'll see if you're doing OSINT in the professional environment, this OSINT cycle comes up. This is more of a simplified one. But you're doing OSINT number one for a reason. What are your data requirements? Why are we digging this information up to begin with? Once you have a target subject, what you're trying to find information out about, then you start the retrieval process. Dig up as much information as you can from as many sources that are in play, and start to comb through it. That's your analysis portion. And then we start, again, creating intelligence out of that information by sifting through the good and the bad, sorting it out. If you've got multiple subjects, you say you're looking at Josh Huff, and there's 42 of them in the U.S., you got to start narrowing down so you can pivot into the other attached information that is accurate to your target of research. When I say pivot, I'll go through a couple of real-world examples of data pivoting here. A little what do you see exercise first. You may remember this photo from when the false ballistic missile warning came across and scared the bejesus out of everybody in Hawaii. this photo popped up and everybody immediately started playing the game of, oh, these clowns have passwords, taped to their monitors. And everybody kind of started playing the game online as well. One Twitter user tried to find things that would help, what would be interesting to an attacker? What's the threat intel we can get out of this photo on this facility? And there was obvious things like the camera placement and everything. But as people started digging, they found like the high resolution versions of this photo on certain news websites and stuff. And they were able to actually pull the phone numbers off of those papers on the wall, showing basically chain of command at the facility, specific names and phone numbers. Even in the system tray, you could see icons for different programs, the antivirus that the systems had on them. One person even went into the books on the desktop, showing college courses, saying that maybe somebody on the administration there was a college student. So there was a lot of information that you could kind of pull just by playing the what can you see game here. Another pivoting example, this is one that popped up just in my random like local news feed of a manhunt that was going on in Aiken, South Carolina. I don't know about you, but if I get the breaking news that something's going on maybe in my backyard, I like to make sure that it's not in my backyard. So we started pulling up information to try to drill in. The reporter on the scene was given the county, but not the exact location. So we started pulling into the photo a little bit as best we could. One thing I've realized during tracking live events, going into Google Maps and turn on your traffic layer in the general area, sometimes it'll cough up a traffic jam, pinpoint a better area to dig into there. So definitely use the traffic layer if you're doing the browser-based OSINT through Google Maps. It's pretty handy. And then we could start pivoting into real context. A unique signpost visible in red there, and then the portion of the street sign visible in the reporter's information in yellow, as well as like a particular branch formation was up in the tree. I believe the photo was from like 2012. The story was from like 2016, but all the markers were there still, so you're able to pull the exact pivot from a geographic location based on objects in a photograph. So that's some examples of pivoting. We'll back up just a little bit and go back into the broader spectrum. How do people use open source intelligence? There's a lot of different uses for it. It could be as simple as parents, spouses, partners using it to check on the background of a babysitter. It doesn't have to be some high level investigation going on. If you just need to look up, is your neighborhood safe? Do you have sexual predators in the area? There's websites for that. You can do remote location reconnaissance before you go on a vacation. Everybody pretty much has done that. Jumped on TripAdvisor, pulled up a Google Street View and see what's your hotel close to. Is there a giant biker conference going on at the same time? And then you get into the more personal side. Relationships. We're in the age of Tinder and online dating. So you can start digging in and seeing who you might be going on a date with. What's their background. What are they into. And then from the other side of relationships, when things are going bad, you can start pulling stuff together. Being a private investigator, we get to see a lot of that side of things. The OSINT that a suspecting spouse has already done on their partner before they come in for a consultation is immense. They will give you the Facebook profile of everybody under the sun that might be of suspect there. So that's the personal side of OSINT that pretty much anybody can do, whether they know it's OSINT or not. Obviously, businesses will use it. You can do rival intelligence, see what your rival company may be working on. If you're hiring, you can go in and do the background stuff the same way that you can on the personal side before you hire somebody. Make sure that they're not some crazy hacker posting stuff when they're going nuts at CarolinaCon. You can look for malicious insiders, somebody that's being negative online about their company. You may want to keep tabs on them from a security standpoint. Again, businesses are going to look at that stuff going into mergers and acquisitions, do their due diligence. investigations for fraud. If somebody's claiming insurance fraud, we definitely go and check their social media, make sure that they're not out playing, basketball on their Instagram page when they're claiming, that they're getting disability checks. And then legal support, intellectual property, attorneys will use that. You can also access public records and patents and all that kind of stuff online. So definitely a lot to do for business. Again, in the current age, including our government administration, media entities are using OSINT quite a lot. Instant reporting of events is a constant thing. Researching stories, doing fact checking. Last night when the strike got initiated on Syria, there was all sorts of reports flying in from overseas that people were clinging to figure out what was going on. That's a good and a bad thing. Both sides of that conflict are going to use that social media to sway, what's going on, who's on the good side, who's on the bad side. So again, we've got to dig into that with analysis and verification to really pull intelligence out of that. But so much of that is out there in the media that there's no lack of data for that stuff either. Law enforcement absolutely uses OSINT data. How often do you see a Crime Stoppers bulletin of some idiot trying to knock over a gas station, or footage of a high-speed chase, and they're trying to find out who the driver of a vehicle is? We just recently had something going on in Colombia where somebody was holed up in their vehicle resisting arrest, and it turned into a big media spectacle. There was literally people like a quarter mile away on the highway on an embankment putting stuff on Snapchat while the police were trying to diffuse this situation. So there's no lack of evidence there. Law enforcement uses social media quite a bit in OSINT. We've even seen comment threads where the police are looking for somebody, and the suspect or one of their friends jumps on. Bob knocked over the liquor store, and their buddy gets on and says, "Idiot Bob is 2 bars over on Main Street. Go get him." And the next thing you know, you're getting an arrest bulletin on Bob. Intelligence agencies absolutely using OSINT. Again, last night's political maneuver with the strike on Syria, people were watching what the other troops were doing and positioning, what was happening due to those actions. We keep tabs on terrorist networks, attribution of events in the cyber world, as well as the real world. Basically, anything you can do to gain intel from far away. Recruitment of assets is an interesting one. If you are trying to get power over a person in a particular region, you may dig up dirt on them and see if you can turn them into an asset for you. Ashley Madison database is a perfect example of that. We saw a decent amount of extortion and people trying to pull money at the threat of disclosing the fact that these people were in the Ashley Madison database a couple years back. That'll lead us into OSINT for bad, basically. You can use that for pretext and cyber attacks. Obviously, anybody that is on red team engagements are going to know about trying to dig up information for a phishing attack. We've seen theft examples, high profile, like the Kim Kardashian robbery. She was showing off too much jewelry and location presence, and somebody used that to pull a heist and got away with some pretty exorbitant amounts of jewelry. Again, extortion with things like the Ashley Madison database. If you have data that's out there, maybe on dating sites or even if you can get your logins tied to like escort services and things like that, then people are able to kind of pull that information to their advantage to use against you. So there's plenty of examples out there in using OSINT for bad. Try to bring it back to a more positive light. Online data that you have control over, things that you can do to kind of protect yourself in essence. What you share online, obviously social media is a huge part of this. You can dig into those settings and try to keep your accounts as private or as open as you want. There's things online like reviews for restaurants and things like that. Those last a really long time. I'll look up certain targets and find out, where their favorite restaurant was like 7 or 8 years ago because they, went on Yelp and were dropping reviews left and right. Um, Again, connections between your various accounts, fitness data, all that kind of stuff is all out there. We'll dig into a few of those more in depth. Things you can control: broadcasting your location. I mentioned earlier SnapMap during the police situation in Columbia. I've seen people using it to their advantage during emergency situations. The picture here was a large apartment fire in New York City, and people were broadcasting, hey, I'm out, I'm safe, trying to let loved ones know. And that can be beneficial. Obviously, if we want to keep tabs on the people we care about in a bad situation, as well as, if we're in that area, we know to, take a different route to get home, because obviously like we saw before, traffic will be impacted there, and there may be dangerous activity as well. On the left there, you've got a view of Snapchat's map functionality. The way that works, basically anybody that has posted a open post within the last 24 hours gets put on a heat map for you. Very convenient to navigate. And on the right is the Facebook Live map. That one is more of a beacon. If there's a user live with video, they'll show up as a blue dot. I use it enough that I've noticed a few things that I'll share here. This is an example of somebody broadcasting their location just to entertain. They're driving around. How common is it now to see somebody walking down the street like this having a convo with themselves? They're either FaceTiming or they're broadcasting live on one of these apps. These two ladies in this video were just kind of driving around talking to their friends. There was comments, coming back online, and they're just having a good old time. In the about section of their profile, it says that they're located in Tampa, Florida. The dots from the previous slide showed that that's where it was. You could actually overlay it and see that, yeah, the dot is present near Tampa, Florida. But if you started digging into the video a little bit, audio cues, I heard the word Catania mentioned. So I pulled up a street view and did some analysis. One of the signs I was able to track down, zoom in a little bit, and it's actually a pharmacy with the phone number built in. So we're able to validate that they're not actually in Tampa, Florida, but they were in Catania, Puerto Rico for that video. So little subtleties there. But again, this person is choosing to broadcast location in a way that we can detect. For this purpose was to entertain. Tying your accounts together, that's something that you have control over. If you're going to generate an online persona for yourself, it could be personal, it could be for business, and you get really into OSINT, it can be for deception and OPSEC. But on the left, you've got a TV reporter using it, and they've got their network spelled right out. There's their LinkedIn, there's their Instagram, there's their Twitter. They're all in one easy spot. As an OSINT investigator, that's perfect. We love that because then we can just go down the list and pull every piece of intel we can. Sites like Keybase will have users that also identify, these are my official accounts on all these platforms. So we are able to choose whether or not we tie our accounts together openly like that. Fitness data. The amount of information that we share obviously came into play several months back with the Strava data that got put out. When me and Micah put this talk together, we weren't trying to get everybody to not share this information. There's definitely benefits to using this kind of thing if you're into that. Connecting with friends and doing like challenges and stuff, probably like 8 years or more. I used to do Nike Plus like a ton. Put the sensor in my iPod, go out for a run, get the miles logged in my profile. And with my friends, we'd do like challenges like by month. So towards the end of the month, I remember getting out for maybe like a quick 5-mile run. And as I logged in, I can see that my buddy Doug had just dropped like 10 miles the day before, took me out of first place for the month. So you know what? Screw you, Doug. I ran for like 14 miles that night. Was I planning on it? No. The next day, he's like, what kind of idiot goes and runs 14 miles just to beat me on this challenge? I was like, I don't know. It's the kind of idiot I am, I guess. So anyway, screw you, Doug. I won. But the point of that is that kind of stuff can be fun. You know, we're not saying don't have fun with that kind of technology, but be careful with it. Strava was the perfect example because it was so widely used. There's millions of users on it, and it goes back many years. Micah did a decent amount of research on this portion. I'll go through it kind of quickly, but he basically they tried to strip away the data and post all these runs in the version of a heat map that you could just turn on, and obviously the map is hotter when there's more and more of these paths there. What he did was start digging in, and you could undo the anonymity of the data that they put out there. He actually was doing talks on this back in 2014 and 15. And one of the things that he noticed were in one particular area, people were calling their runs patrols. So he started digging into it, and it was actually a sub power station in Tilbury, UK, I think. And when he dug in, he found out that the guards were actually using Strava almost as accountability. The company was having the guards use these things on their patrols. You know, maybe they had issues where guards were sitting in front of the desk too long and not taking their routes. So have this fitness tracker on you, and we'll keep tabs on that. Back then, the data was pretty much, you know, by user, little run points there. Once Strava dropped the heat map thing on it, though, you could tell that there's going to be issues there. The guards were obviously very present on the east and west sides of that facility, a little bit on the south, but there's an obvious vulnerability there. If we're looking at a way to breach this this building, or, you know, do some vandalism or something, we know where the live guards are going to be and where they're not. The other thing that people got definitely up in arms about was the identification of other base camps and stuff. This example here, you can see in the top, it's 170 attempts around this base camp perimeter by 10 people. Again, in the sentiment of screw you, Doug, that they were competing. You know, there's leaderboards out there for Strava too, so people were trying to make that route around the base perimeter to be the fastest. And then again, some of these profiles were not quite private in their settings. That particular user had photos, you know, that's inside their home, pictures of them with their pets, and even photos of other areas that they were doing activities in that you could branch out and kind of move to where else would they be. So that was kind of the summary there. If you're not careful with the way that you use that, definitely we're able to identify some things. Strava did go through and pull a little bit of their permissions back. A lot of the scrutiny that we're seeing out of the Facebook and the Cambridge Analytica stuff, as well as the privacy changes out of the European GDPR stuff, is going to start to kind of pull some of this stuff back to a point, but it's never enough to drop, you know, OSINT discoverability. All right, so again, those are things you obviously have control over. We'll touch on some data that you don't necessarily have control over here. There is all sorts of things in the vein of public record, real estate information, affiliations that you may have to other groups that post their own information via newsletters, things like that. As well as like the increasing technology on facial recognition. I know before the Cambridge Analytica stuff, Facebook was already letting you know about the facial recognition settings. The first time you log in, it was like, hey, we've got this great feature. You can use it to be notified when somebody is, you know, putting pictures of you. That way you can tag yourself or not. No, thank you. Number one, they just start telling us about it. But if you pulled your archive of your data, that algorithm for your face data has been in there for quite some time. It's not really a new thing. They've been harvesting that for quite a while. There's articles out there like this one that talk about kind of the ghost profiles. You may not necessarily have a Facebook account, or you may have chosen to delete it after some of the outrage, but they're still kind of giving you that ghost profile. That way, if you do happen to join, or if your friend tags you and you do want to take part in that facial recognition, there's going to be a database out there for you. We're seeing more and more cities that have quite a bit of this technology as well. Yeah.
I want to say they've been doing that for years before they actually had the actual face recognition algorithm. They were essentially crowdsourcing it with the Facebook audience. You would tag people's photos. I know they've been doing it effectively for at least a decade.
Oh yeah.
So I discovered, there was a ghost profile for me, even though I already had a Facebook account.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently someone just spelled my name differently, and so it created this second Facebook, it's something I was like, you want to be friends with, that's me, what? And it took me a while to figure that out, so, they've been doing that for at least a decade.
Yeah.
Probably even if you link your account.
Yep. Oh yeah, your account's gone, but they'll keep something there for you, just in case you want to go back. Facebook's been around since 2004, so that's plenty of time for them to develop this and have plenty of archive stuff back there. I've seen that facial algorithm stuff kind of backfire at the same time. Instances where parents are tagging their kids for each other. That way, if somebody likes a photo that's the family, the other parent gets notified, when the grandparents are seeing a picture of, grandson, for instance. But the algorithm, if you're doing that over and over again, starts to actually mix the faces just a little bit. So I've seen a little bit of deception there too, that I wonder how that stuff will pan out in the long run too, but time will tell on that one. Religious newsletters is one thing that Micah was able to do a pretty good amount of information digging on. I'll show you a little bit more, but there's a lot of information in any organization's newsletter, all the way to like contact entries, who's sick, who's having kids, pictures, future events where you may be able to determine that somebody's going to be somewhere in the future. Newsletters are a great source for that. He was able to pull a Google Dork there with the file type PDF, the term newsletter, and then church, temple, synagogue, or mosque. And you can see here he's got almost 700,000 results, which are all almost full PDF newsletters. Once you start kicking through those guys, Grace Lutheran there on the right, they've got an archive that I think went back about 10 years once he found that directory. And then you've got basically just archives of different data points. This was the prayer chain, phone numbers and email addresses for the congregation, birthdays going on there, prayers for the healing, people that are sick, full photographs of new members. So you can get your reverse image search on if one of those people happens to be a target. So quite a bit of information in newsletters and the religious examples. Religion's not the only spot where you'll find newsletters. There's business newsletters and plenty of other venues out there for that kind of thing as well. Real estate property. Public records are out there for a lot of real estate. If you go to a website like Zillow.com shown here, they're going to aggregate that, as much of that as possible, and put it out there as a convenience for somebody that may be looking to buy a home, get some intel on the worth of the neighborhood that they're walking into. This particular example gets pretty bad though. This property was hosted by Turner Properties, which is actually a rental company. They have a YouTube channel for those kind of properties with videos like this. This is about a 7-minute tour of that particular house, going all the way around the yard, to the back doors, the side doors, and then they go into the property and show you, each of the rooms. That photo on the bottom right is the front door, and that panel on the right-hand side is the alarm panel, things that you might not necessarily want somebody to know the location of in your home. Once I found that kind of information, you're actually able to do the street view exploration. And there's houses with the same floor plan in your neighborhoods. I did a walk and was able to find a kind of a unique rooftop pattern. And at that point, I zoomed out and was able to actually find like 11 identical houses that matched that 7-minute tutorial walkthrough. So if I'm a thief trying to case a joint, I've got actually 11 different options in that neighborhood because of that one rental property. So Things like that you got to be careful of. If somebody in your neighborhood is, their house property is on a rental, you may have a lot more information about, your home layout. So you want to be careful of that kind of stuff too. That's kind of the end of the bad stuff there. We'll make it a little bit more fun with interesting OSINT here. There is a lot of tracking sites out there. Track a train, planes, boats, satellites, much more. I think I found the UFO sightings tracker. Somebody was following the gritters out of Ireland that dropped all the salt on the highways, and they had like some crazy names like Gritalica and Gritty Gritty Bang Bang and stuff like that. So people were putting those out there. You could see the locations of the salt trucks over in Europe. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff out there that makes OSINT fun. The most, I think, useful ones from a general standpoint are some of the flight tracking ones. You can see if your flights are on time. I was able to kind of wave at that plane as it's mid-route going from Washington to Orlando, coming across Columbia there. You can also see interesting things like holding patterns. If you got planes that are just kind of circling your city, might be cause for alarm. You kind of look it up and realize that these guys are all in a holding pattern while that storm front passes through, because they're not trying to land at the airport with a storm over it. And then again, last night with the Syria strikes, people were watching on flight radar. This was like a Russian military jet that pulled a Yui during the amount of some of the strikes. So obviously people are going to pay attention to that kind of intelligence too. The Marine tracker ones can key into some of that military stuff too. There was some unique tracking going on last night for sure. Another interesting one is the amount of remote traffic cameras in the major cities. This one was Atlanta. Obvious use case there is to avoid the terrible traffic jam on the right there. The other pretty solid uses would be for law enforcement, things like Amber Alerts or stolen vehicles. You're going to be able to utilize these network of cameras all over the city to maybe keep tabs on a vehicle that's cruising around. I've been able to take part in cases involving like heavy equipment theft, and being able to tune into camera networks like this as somebody's moving, say, like a flatbed with a giant piece of construction equipment on the back is pretty useful. You'd be able to keep tabs on which direction things are moving. I found that stuff useful enough. I actually set up a small GitHub list. South Carolina, I think I'm up to about 400 or 500 different camera locations. I was able to pull that, and with some of these listings, you can even get like the GPS coordinates off of the back end if you pull like the JSON view on these sites. So I'll be slowly updating this. If you want to mark that GitHub page, I'll have a whole bunch of cameras for you. I started aggregating some of DC and a little bit of Georgia as well. All right, so what can we do to make it more challenging for people against using our own data against us? The internet itself is basically just a personal risk-based decision. How much information do you want to give up to have access to certain services? This Join Honey website has been heavily advertised recently, and it's a coupon aggregator. You join the program, give them permission to kind of see where you're shopping, and it does that along the other 600 plus million people that are doing it. And you have access to coupon codes when you go to check out on a website. Hey, you're shopping at Overstock. Here's a 10 off 100 coupon. But if you go into those privacy terms, you can tell that they're just tracking everything under the sun with your web traffic. So that's a decision. Whether or not you're gonna give up that information to have the benefit of those coupon codes. You want to definitely be aware of that. The items that are already on the internet, the opt-out policy that's in place on a lot of the people search sites. This document, Micah's coworker put together. It's a really handy one that hits a lot of the major people search sites. Some of those sites are pretty easy to opt out of, and you can just go to a link, find your entry and drop it. Other ones not so much, but they kind of give you the listing of which ones are easy, which ones are difficult. And they've done some work to kind of keep this updated, because people search sites, they change, they shift, they rebrand. So it's not an easy thing to do, but using a resource like this will definitely help you play the game of keeping your information off of the easy targets out there. Educating others. Your own privacy practices may not necessarily be the same as your family and friends. If I'm going to go and have a beer with Micah and he's going to be tagging it on Untapped or Foursquare that hey, I'm having a beer with Beowulf, like just let people know. I value my privacy. Please don't put this stuff out while we're doing that kind of stuff. Because again, your intentions and practices may not necessarily be that of your friends and family. So their decisions on risk and having fun with social media and stuff can definitely impact you, similar to the ghost profile stuff. And then your kids. I've got a son, and he uses a few of my accounts through like the gaming sites and stuff, so I have to keep tabs on that. I don't need anything in my information security realm bubbling over to the gaming realm, so we try to isolate the usernames and stuff like that, and definitely keep tabs on the kids too. Persistence is key when it comes to educating your family. Obviously, we're going through a lot with the Facebook and Cambridge Analytica stuff, and a lot of people are just like, why aren't they more informative to this stuff? They say that they're slimy and sneaky and all this stuff, but I mean, this one was an article from 2015 saying, hey, these quizzes are not good for your privacy, don't use them. There was another one from 2 years ago, stop doing quizzes on Facebook if you have any value on privacy. And then 4 days ago, data collected by Quiz app in private, included your private messages. It's just the awareness. It's not a one and done thing. So you may have to tell your family members a bunch of times. So that kind of stuff is definitely a persistence pays off type of thing. And we mentioned this one before, but consider not tying your accounts together. That by far is one of the easiest ways to go and start branching an OSINT profile on somebody if they've got linked accounts. We've got ways to kind of pivot off of those. But when you put them all in one spot for us, it definitely makes it easy to get started. Micah did build the Sec 487 class. His next one is in June. The link there will give you more information on that. He's done a really good job with that. Definitely check it out. And then I've got a lot of my blog material up discussing more OSINT tools and tactics and everything. That's going to be the final link where I'll drop all the links and resources if you missed one. So that'll be the one there. That's all the prattling I have for today. Anybody got any questions or anything? Yes. Impersonation, when it comes to social media and profiles, that definitely has come into play. In private investigation, I've got people that'll come in with cyber stalking and harassment type cases, and you will find multiple profiles sometimes for people in those situations. When it comes to things like Facebook, I've been able to do a lot of research on the Facebook ID number to the point where I can almost go back and timestamp it based on the Facebook ID number alone. So in a case where you've got, say, 5 profiles for the same person, you can go back, find the oldest one, and kind of authenticate off of that one. I've also seen other scenarios where say people are using Facebook for gang affiliations or something more underhanded. They'll have multiple profiles, and they may be connected to their family and everything on one of them, and then all of their friends and everything for the gang relation stuff on the other one. So basically doing as much back-end research as you can to validate you know, via the ID numbers or going through and actually looking at the timelining of stuff is kind of the best way I've seen to be able to do that. You can do, some sites make it easier than others. If you've got Twitter accounts, you can literally just hover over a part in their profile and it pops up, you know, they joined on this day at this time, like it shows it right there. There's tools out there that'll help you timestamp that and do some of that analysis. The ones on inteltechniques.com are some of the best ones for kind of digging into the Facebook APIs. But it's doing things on the back end of the websites to kind of pull that information for you. We're in a kind of a fluctuation right now because of the Cambridge Analytica stuff. They're dropping access to a lot of those APIs. But I'll make sure and drop the link to some of the Facebook tools on that final set there. If you're interested in that, just kind of take a look there. Yep. Yes.
So when you say linked account, that's when you go to sign on with Google or sign on with Facebook as opposed to creating a different ID for that site?
Yeah, the Facebook analytics, signing in with Facebook, signing in with Google, that's one of those things that will start to link in your overall digital profile. A lot of people will just straight up put it in their profile, you know, hey, this is my Snapchat, you know, and it's in their Twitter profile, or, you know, this is my account on deviantart.com. Like, you know, there's blatant ways, and then, you know, there's the tracking ways. You can sign into just about anything under the sun with your Facebook profile. And then that stuff tends to kind of leave some of those analysis trails when we start putting your Facebook ID number into those analysis tools. We can see some of that stuff as a linked app or an authorized app on your profile. So that can definitely spin off if you're signing in with those buttons. Yes.
So have you ever tried using Multigo for this? You know, a lot of the data sources that flooding Multigo can be pretty expensive. Do you know of any inexpensive ways or?
I don't pay for a lot of the heavy Multigo lifting ones. I know there's a lot of red teamers out there that they've got the backing by their company to kind of fund those and run through those, but it's definitely a costly process. I know a lot of people more on the private investigator side or the smaller business side that use the community edition to kind of build out their profiles visually, sometimes just for reporting purposes. But I don't personally use a lot of the paid tools out there. There's not a lack of open source tools when it comes to this kind of stuff that I've really needed to go that level. Even the PI firm uses some of the TLO, like paid database lookups on background checks for people. And I've had access to the paid side of that. I can probably pull at least 90% of that with open source tools. It's not as fast, obviously, but you know the tools are out there if you know where to find them to kind of patch all those little pieces together and build the same level of intelligence. All right, no other questions. I'll get out of here. Thanks for your time, everybody. Appreciate it.